Wow. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here in front of all of you today, hardworking entrepreneurs, especially a Sunday morning. Good morning, everybody. Get some handouts already in front of you or not yet? Okay, we'll get some handouts in front of you. But today, I'm going to ask you a question. What if I could show you how to reverse engineer your pathway to success? I don't mean you as the audience. I mean you and you and you specifically. By the end of the hour, you're going to know what exactly you need to do to scale to get to the next level, where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, and what you need to do to get to that $5 million mark, that $10 million mark, whatever your milestone is. So as Ben mentioned, I am Mike Volkin, CMO. I've worked with over 400 companies in 20 different countries, 22 to be exact, 36 different industries. I just realized it makes me look like I get fired a lot, but I'm a fractional CMO. Okay, so I take on jobs that have a defined start and end point, okay? Or I go into a marketing department and provide leadership and audit the department for a short period of time. Sometimes there's long-term engagements. I've also written 6 books, 1 bestseller, so 5 failures. And I've built and sold 5 companies of my own. But none of that is important. I've done some other stuff too, some of it good. But that's my least favorite slide, so we're going to go past it. So today I'm going to talk to you about a business success formula that I developed. You're not going to find this online. You're not going to find this in any book. This came from 20 years of experience working in over 400 different companies. And it is a measurable way for you to grade and track your business success or lack of business success, okay? So as I mentioned, I work with hundreds of companies. Some were crap. Most were good. You know, most companies can be run pretty well with a reasonably intelligent person and scale, but you're going to plateau to a certain point. And then few, I'm talking about less than 12 that have helped derive this business success formula. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Those few, I've noticed, had patterns. Patterns of leadership, patterns of behavior, and patterns of execution. So what I did was I took those patterns and I distilled them in forms of questions that we could rank. You could rank yourself on where you're at. And at the end, we're going to get a number. So here's the success formula. This is how you scale to infinity. This is how you create $1 billion valuation if you wanted. There's no limit to what you can do if you can score high on this formula. The formula is T times 1.5 plus P plus B plus I. That equals business success. Let me define that for you. Talent times 1.5. We're going to take that number, we're going to multiply it times 1.5 because that is the most important part of running a business is great talent, plus performance, plus brand, plus innovation. Okay? Now, in full disclosure, this is an 8-hour exercise. Companies pay me to come in, meet with their company leaders, sometimes their employees, and we go through this for 8 hours. I looked at all of your surveys that you submitted before you came here today, and I customized this presentation to be an hour or less to the companies that I knew were going to be here today. So even though you're going to get a cut-down version, it's still going to be accurate and estimate or exact for you. So what you're going to do is you have a handout in front of you. Self-rate yourself 10 points for each part of this equation. So with talent, you're going to total as high as possible, which is 15 points. In all the other categories, P, B, and I, are 10 points each. That means the highest possible score, which no one's ever gotten, is 45. And to answer your question, the highest possible score I've ever seen is 41. Oh, and by the way, questions. Since we have a lot to cover in this next hour. So if you have questions, write them down. If we have time at the end, we'll go through them. And if you still have questions after that, you can just email me. I'll be happy to answer them. All right, so you got a handout. It's 2 pages, front and back. Okay? What's that? Go back 1 slide. There you go. It's also on the handout. You bet. All right, that's my sign for handout, and you already have them, so we'll go on to the next slide. All right, so the talent portion is broken up into several categories: acquisition, management, leadership, culture, and teamwork. So I'm going to ask you questions, and you're going to write down an answer between 1 to 10. Now, if a question doesn't apply to you, that's okay. Just skip it, because we're going to average the sections. Okay. And don't put a 0, because zeros are really hard to average. It'll mess up your average. Okay. First question regarding acquisition: do you administer assessment tests to gauge the quality of the candidate's skills for the job? So there are sites you might know about, Indeed.com for one. They have assessment tests that you can give to each candidate. Give yourself a 1 if you don't give assessment tests. Give yourself a 10 if you are religious about giving them all the time. The reason why you want to give assessment tests that gauge the candidate's skill is because when people hire, they hire incorrectly. That's the reason why it's so hard to find A players. You hire based on feel and vibration and energy and connection that you have with a human individual. But the assessment test will help normalize that. Okay, you'll get a score. You can give an assessment test for attention to detail. You can give an assessment test for cognitive behavior. Whatever the skills are for the job that you're trying to hire for, you can give an assessment skill for it. And it'll rank that person in relation to other people as well, and other industry averages. So you can take that feel, that energy, that connection you have with that person, and compare that with the score that that person has to get a true assessment of how that person will do for the job. So, again, 10 is the highest, 1 is the lowest. Give yourself a rank. Next question regarding acquisition: does each hire answer questions around company culture? Guys, do not answer or do not ask questions about company culture to the candidate, because you're going to get the crappiest answers. It's like the stupidest interview question I ever hear is, tell me about your greatest weakness. Has anybody ever asked that and gotten a truthful answer ever in the history of mankind? No. You're going to get the stupidest, you're going to get answers like, well, some people say I work too hard, or some people say I bring my work home with me, just like the stupidest stuff. Same with culture. They're going to give you an answer you want to hear. So you got to ask them questions that they don't know is relating to culture. Questions like, what gets you excited about coming to work? What surprises people about you? Describe your dream job. And this isn't on the handout, so you can take a picture of that if you want to add this to your interview process. Would you rather work alone or with a team? So these questions, they don't know that culture is being asked, but it'll help gauge your level of knowledge from them on what they're looking for. Okay, and even if you're a one-person show, you have culture within yourself. You know that they're going to be a good fit for you. All right, so these are great sample questions. Also, with acquisition, do you have a grading system for each candidate? Now, this is different than the tests I just talked about. The grading system could be as simple as a Word document and how well the candidates answered each question. It could be A through F, 1 through 5, whatever. The problem with hiring is that people either hire the first person they talk to or the last person they talk to, because they forget the 8 other people they talked to in between. They forgot which candidate answered the question the best, and vice versa, and the worst. And at the end, you just get a jumbled mess. You're like, well, I'll just go with the last person I hired. It's all subconscious, but there's been numerous studies that show most people hire the first person to the last person they talk to. And a grading system will normalize that. So you can just have a grading system with how well did this candidate answer this question, 1 through 5, and you just have at the end a list of grades that you can compare the candidates to. All right, 1 through 10 on that. Do your employees feel appreciated? Or are you like a sweatshop where people are afraid to talk to you? Listen, it doesn't have to be a multi-$1,000 party you're throwing to people for them to feel appreciated. It could be something as simple as, hey, I noticed you came to work. You were punctual all year, very late, or very little, you were late. That makes them feel appreciated. Little comments here and there. Just make sure they're true. All right. How well do you celebrate holidays and or company milestones? I worked with a lot of companies. They celebrate Christmas and all those great events, but company milestones are important. If you set out a company milestone for your employees, say, let's reach $1 million in revenue this year, and when you reach it, you should have like a little catered lunch or something. The best companies I've ever worked with celebrate the littlest things, and it means a lot to people. and it keeps your A players longer. You don't want to hire B players, and you definitely don't want to hire C players. What we're talking about today will help you hire A players. They're worth it. They're expensive, but they're worth it. They'll give you a positive return on whatever you're doing. So let's move on to management. That was all acquisition. That was all about how to get A players. So 1 through 10, how well do you know your employees' strengths and weaknesses? Or your own strengths and weaknesses if you're working by yourself? Let me tell you a story. I was sitting with a CFO reviewing some numbers recently, and he overheard a conversation about a junior designer. He was complaining he couldn't do something in Photoshop. He was having problems. The CFO gets up out of his chair, walks to the hallway, and solves the problem, starts talking Photoshop speak. And I had no idea. I'm like, how did you know that? He's like, oh, I have a side hustle. I run a t-shirt design shop at night. I'm like, all this time there's been like this senior designer that we had no idea, this untapped resource. And now this junior designer has someone to go to for leadership and guidance. So, and it doesn't have to be work related. Strengths or weaknesses are in everybody. You can directly ask your employees what their strengths and weaknesses are, and you can find some hidden gems in your existing staff. So rate yourself 1 to 10 on how well you know your strengths and weaknesses of your employees. Sorry, I'm talking faster than normal because we have a lot of questions I want to get through to tell you. If I'm going too fast or you want me to back up, just let me know. Does each employee, this is regarding leadership, because each one of you that are company owners are leaders, whether you want to be or not. Does each employee understand the financial company goals? A lot of times I'll walk into a company and the CEO will tell me the goals of the company, the financial goals, and nobody else will know what those goals are. The sales staff, marketing, customer service, no one knows. You have to tell people what your goals are because every day they're going to come to work and try to reach those goals for you, subconsciously or consciously, everything they do. So where's Holly? Is Holly here from the Boot Life? Oh, Chris. Well, Chris, you're here. Good. So Chris yesterday on stage mentioned they have a, what was it, 90% conversion rate, people in your store? All right, so 90+%, which is fantastic. So the goal there is letting all of your floor representatives know that if somebody's walking out of that door with nothing in their hands or a purchase or a receipt or a bag, that they're going to go that extra mile because they know 90% needs to be converted to make their goals. It's very important. Also, with leadership, does each employee understand the company mission, core values, and value proposition? If you just ask yourself, what is a core value and value proposition? Go ahead and give yourself a 1. If you have them, but nobody really knows about them or they're not posted anywhere, go ahead and give yourself a 5 or a 6. But if everybody knows and can recite the core values, the company mission, and the value proposition in your company, then go ahead and give yourself a 10. These are important marketing communications that everybody in your company needs to know about. Even if you're a one-man show or a one-woman show, you need to have these because this helps build your culture and your vision for the future of your company. Okay, 1 through 10. Does the leadership team take time away from daily operations to objectively review how the company is doing and if it is moving in the right direction, no matter how big you are? Look, I'm a one-man show. Well, my wife works with me. But every Friday morning, I take time away from the gym. That's my only non-gym day. And I go up to a mountain near my house. It takes me about a half an hour hike. I leave my cell phone in the car. And on the way up, I listen to my feet crunching on the leaves and twigs. And I get my brain set. When I reach the top, I live in Sonoma County. I look over some wineries, and I reflect. I reflect on the week prior, what went right, what went wrong. And I reflect on the week that's coming up. What do I need to do? What do I need to prepare for? It's called an AWE walk, A-W-E walk. It's really important. And I'm going to tell you, the first time you do this, your head's going to feel 10 pounds lighter when you walk down that hill. It's going to relieve you. You know, all the time, we go to work, we grind, we push, we step on the gas pedal as fast as it can go. We never take time to reflect. It's during those times that you reflect is the time when you can really grow, okay? Because if you're in tasks and projects and emails all day, you never get time to take your head up out of that water. You feel like your water line's like right below your nose. So 1 out of 10. And you know, some of the big companies that I've worked with have actually, you know, I'm in Sonoma County. They'll rent out a winery for a day, pour some glasses of wine, and talk about the company. They don't talk about tasks. They don't talk about projects. They talk about the company. Are we reaching our goals? What's our vision? Are we still on track? How's our brand doing? From a 30,000-foot overview. That's super important. Do that at least once every quarter year, if not once a month. Your leadership team should be going with you outside of the office. It's very important. Outside of the phones, outside of the emails, outside of everything in the office that's going on that's distracting. Okay? Culture. I'm going to tell you right now, the best companies that I've worked with, all of them have a defined culture. If you don't have one, you need to develop one. And sometimes it'll develop on its own. Just make sure you foster it. Do your employees measure the impact of their work? A lot of people say, well, how the heck do I measure the impact of my work? Brandy, I'm going to call you. You're Brandy, right? I talked to you. Yes. You're a designer? All right. So if anybody needs some design work, go to Brandy. I don't know if she's any good, but she's very serious about her job because she's here. Okay? Brandy might come to me and say, well, Mike, I'm a designer. How do I measure the impact of my work? Well, Brandy, you just updated a product page for me, right? And she might say, yeah. Well, take the stats the week before the product page and tell me the add to cart to purchase conversion. Then take the week after you made those changes and tell me the conversions. And she might come back to me and say, well, conversions increased 4.7%, which equates to $13,000 more in revenue. That's how you measure the impact of your work. Everybody in your company can do that. Okay? And there you can fetch a higher price. All right? You create more value for the company. So make sure that every employee, even yourselves, can measure the impact of their work. So give yourself a 10 if you know that every one of your employees has a measurable way to impact their work in the company. It doesn't have to be financial. It could be anything, as long as it's measurable. Tracking? All right. Culture. Do the employees know that management encourages people to speak up when they disagree with a decision? Do you live in a totalitarian company where people are afraid to talk to you? I tell you, I wouldn't be with Ben for very long if he wouldn't let me speak up, because we disagree quite a bit. But we talk through our issues. We make decisions together. And that's the way you should be too. He makes sure that everyone in the company, no matter what position they're in, has the ability to speak up, even with their crazy decisions. And you know who you are in our company. All right, teamwork. When hiring for a position within a team, is the team involved? I can't tell you how many times I've sat in on interview processes with companies, hundreds of employees, and the manager will be interviewing for a team position in, say, the marketing department, and they won't involve the marketing department. The most valuable questions and insights you're going to give to a candidate is from the team that is in the task doing it day after day. They're going to be the best people to interview for the position. So be sure to involve everyone that is going to be interacting with that position in the interview process. Give yourself a 10 if you do that, or a 9 or an 8. All right, so we're going to take a 30-second break. You're going to average your score. So total up acquisition, management, leadership, culture, and teamwork, and then multiply that number times 1.5. While you wait, we'll play some classical music. How about that? Maybe if you have it. Perfect. Cool. All right, guys. Anybody want to say their scores? Don't be embarrassed. Anybody higher than a 5? Okay. Anybody higher than a 10? All right, well, got some work to do, I guess. Some of us. But that's good. You got to recognize where you need improvement, right? What happened to the classical music? Ah, we're good. We're good. Who's still working? Need some time? Okay. Another 15 seconds. Ah, that's nice. Thank you. Remember, this is the only number we're multiplying times 1.5 because it's the most important number. You people who work with me at Ben Oberg Enterprises, you should be doing this too. Because what's interesting is the employees will often have different scores than the leadership team. Alex, this better be good, dude. What? You don't know math. Okay. Maybe your wife can help you. Tim, did you have a question? No? All right, guys, 5 more seconds. All right, so you can cut the classical music. That was great. Thank you. Let's continue that song after this next section. This is the longest section, but so I'm going to ask 1 or 2 questions in each category so we can score ourselves. This is performance, otherwise known as execution. If you cannot do this, you will not scale. Period. I cannot state that clear enough. If you cannot perform, you will not scale. Marketing, sales, automation, scalability, processes, productivity, which I define as the value of work divided by the hours worked, and then liability mitigation. For marketing, do you know what the measures of success and failure are? Or are you just throwing money out there, hoping something would stick? You know, with the clients that I work with Ben, we give reports every week, so we know what's successful and what didn't work, and we can take what didn't work and we can make it work. You need to know before you launch any marketing campaigns what you're considering as success and what you're considering as failure. Give yourself a 10 if before you do any marketing, launch Facebook ads, reach out to influencers, whatever your marketing is, give yourself a 10 if you know what your levels of success are before you even launch a product or a project, and give yourself a 5 if you kind of do that, and a 1 if you don't know what I'm talking about. All right, do you know your customer lifetime value? Let's say that every customer is worth $1,000 to you, whether it's recurring or it's a one-time purchase. You need to know that because that is a benchmark for all your marketing campaigns that you're going to be doing. The difference between your customer lifetime value and your acquisition cost, what it takes to acquire a customer. Look, you're not going to be in business very long. Let me ask you guys a question. How long are you going to be in business if your customer lifetime value is $1,000, but it takes you $1,200 to acquire a customer? Anybody? Any guess? 0? All right. Yeah, you're going to be out of business really fast. You got to know your CLV, or CLTV it's called, customer lifetime value. If you don't know that, it's a good thing to do on the plane ride home is try to figure that out. It's kind of easy though. Just look at your data. Do you know your profit margin? Listen, there's a very famous saying for marketers like me, and everybody should know it. Revenue is vanity, and profits are sanity. Ben mentioned yesterday, you're a roofing company that makes $20 million, but you take home $50,000. That's not very good. Okay? It might seem flashy to say you make $20 million, but it's not going to get you very far. You got to know your profit margin in every product that you sell, right? Chris and Holly at the Boot Life, they have lots of products. They probably know what their profit margins on every single time somebody brings up something to the counter. If you know your profit margin, you can know that when you run Facebook ads and you have a 2x ROAS, if that's profitable or not. It sounds like it's making money, that you're spending $10 to make $20, but realistically, you still might be losing money if your profit margin isn't high enough, right? Because Facebook took 10 out of that $20. Is your CRM being actively used, cleaned of bad data, and being continually customized and updated? If you just ask yourself, what is a CRM? Then give yourself a 1. If you have a CRM like Ben, where he's mentioning the other day that he tracks down physical addresses and he updates emails and every contact is the same and it's customized to his business, that is the way you grow a company. And let me tell you something. This is something you may not know. 50% of all the money you take into your company will come to you in one lump sum the day you sell your company. Okay? It's very satisfying. I've done it 5 times where you get a lump sum because your value of your company is based on what's called SDE. We can talk about that. I don't know. Maybe I'll talk about that in the winter conference. Seller discretionary earnings. How to build your business for high value. Your CRM is a vital part of your valuation. It's got to be good, and it's got to be impressive. So when prospects are looking to value your company at 2x, 3x, 5x multiple of SDE, your CRM is a large part of their decision process. Does each team member have clear visibility into their sales numbers in relation to their goals? All right, so if your sales staff can't log into a dashboard or can't see an Excel spreadsheet on where they're at, Look, I keep referencing Ben, but look, Ben was talking about this yesterday. He knew when he was a car salesman, he had to make his quota, and it was 1.5 left he had to sell before the end of the month, and he was on the phone just pushing. That's where you got to be. Your sales team has got to be pushing for that. You got to have them have clear numbers. Your commission structure has to be simple enough for them to understand where they're at. That's what creates that drive and that extra revenue for you. Give yourself a 10 if you have that. All right, moving forward into automation. Is each employee being asked about work that could be automated? A lot of times people will automate the CRM or the website, but what's not automated is maybe the admin assistant does some repetitive tasks and it takes her away from answering the phones quick enough, or your customer service is lacking because they're busy typing some stuff that a robot could do. You got to go down to every one of your employees and ask what can be automated. The best companies that I've worked with have done this to an exhaustive level. Okay, do you offer and clearly portray market differentiation? There's a lot of ways to differentiate yourself in the market. You could be the low price leader. You could be the Tiffany's jewelry high price leader. You could be the one that offers the best customer service. Look, Tim at the Redwood Group, I'm working with him. He told me right away his market differentiation. The agents have the best local knowledge of anybody in the area. But it's one thing to know what your marketing differentiation is. You got to portray it everywhere. Your website, your branding documents, your prospects, your customers who have already, you're done servicing them, okay? They have to know about your marketing differentiation. Give yourself a 10 if you know exactly what your marketing differentiation is and you know that everybody, all your prospects and customers know what that is. Let's move on to scalability. You guys still with me? Giving yourself numbers? Cool. How well can you retain the same staff costs as revenue increases? If you run an agency, this is a common problem. You take on clients, you need to hire people. You get rid of some clients, you need to fire people. It's a constant juggling act. It sucks. You got to set up your company to know when you hire somebody that their pay is based on how much money or how much work they can take on and how much money they can make without stressing themselves out to be unproductive. You got to be able to structure your company so you can scale without having a staff of 200 people to service 30 clients. Okay, I'm not going to talk about SOPs. We've exhausted ourselves with SOPs these last few days. There's been some really good tips. Are your SOPs well documented, highly visible, and visible throughout the entire company and updated regularly? Look, now that Loom Tequila took my thunder yesterday, she gave my tip out. She didn't know though. SOPs now are just really a chapter header with a Loom video. That's all you need. It's not a big process. It shows people how something is done. Your employee is icon. He comes to work, he gets hit by a car. Can someone pick up his work the next day? Right? I've worked with companies who have SOPs on how to do SOPs because SOPs vary from department to department. All right? It's like you're at the nexus of the universe. I'm like, what is this? They're like, oh, it's an SOP and how we do SOPs. All right? It's very important. Be adamant about your SOPs. Talking about company valuation earlier, that's another big thing that helps your company value with multiple values of high multiples. Selling your company for 3x, 5x. One time I did a 6x. All right? It's all because my SOPs were tight. The prospects that come in, they can see exactly what I'm doing and how I do it. Very little training is needed. Performance. Talking about process. Are your company files well organized with a clear structure? This is so important. This is the biggest problem I have when I come into new companies, okay? They have a Google Drive or Dropbox and their files are all over the place. I can't find anything. Employees can't find anything. Maybe your file structure, maybe your folder structure is good, but your files suck, right? I open up a file, it's like labeled Jeremy. I'm like, what the hell does this mean? And Drive and Dropbox have search bars, so you can find stuff if it's labeled good, all right? So make sure you have a clear structure with how your files and folders are structured on Drive or Dropbox or whatever cloud system you use. Cool? Give yourself a 10 if you know exactly how if you can, here's a measure of what's a 10. If you can call your employee or someone at your company and tell them exactly where a file is, being on the phone, not being in front of a computer. You've memorized your structure. Productivity. Value of work divided by work hours. Are your employees utilizing time management systems like the Pomodoro technique and calendar blocking? This is a whole other presentation I give, but there are productivity hacks. Anybody who works with me knows, and I'm not bragging, I'm just saying this because it's an absolute truth. knows that I can do the work of 5 employees in one day, okay? Because I utilize Pomodoro technique. Took me over a year to master, but I live by it. Calendar blocking too. You as an employee or you as a leader care more about your company than anybody else. Your employees, they care maybe, but they don't know these hacks that will make them more effective. They're coming to work to get paid. They're relying on you as a leader to be effective, to teach them how to be effective. Okay, do your employees get access to kneeling chairs and standing desks? Jessica talked about this when she opened the conference, Jessica Brothers. Kneeling chairs. Guys, there's something called neuroplasticity in your brain, all right? It's the way your brain fires connections and how fast it does. It's your ability to learn new things over time. And the more neuroplastic your brain is, the more you can learn, the faster you can learn. Your brain is in relax mode when you're sitting down, okay? It's in relax mode. When you're standing up or even kneeling, your brain is active. When you sit down, you're telling your brain to relax. And you don't want to do that when you're working, right? So get yourself a kneeling chair. If you don't take anything away from this conference, go to Amazon Prime after this presentation, of course. Order yourself a kneeling chair. You'll have it in a day or two, and you'll instantly be 10% more productive without doing anything else with your company. All right? Just got your money's worth for your ticket. All right? Get yourself a kneeling chair, a standing desk. Those are good too. Don't do it both at the same time, or you'll be typing like this, but one or the other. I have a standing desk. And during meetings, I lower it and I use my kneeling chair. And I never sit down. The only time I sit down is at night. I'm watching Netflix or something. Okay, it's very important to know this. Your brain is an asshole, all right? Your brain is conditioned to take the least path of resistance to get the job done. That's the reason why gyms try to push you on a yearly membership, because they know 90% of you won't come back after 2 weeks. Because this is hard work, shit. All right, your brain is an asshole. I mean, let me give you an example. I had a dream the other day. I was working in my dream, which I do sometimes. And a clown walks into my office. I don't like clowns. He walks into my office and he puts a box on my desk. Now, I thought to myself, what's in the box? I made the box. I don't know why I thought that, but that's what I thought. Now, what should have happened if my brain wasn't an asshole is a couple bikini babes could have popped out and I had a great dream for 20 minutes. It's not what happened. All right, 2 minutes. All right, 20 seconds. No, but seriously, what happened is I opened the box and it was overflowing with hairy spiders that started crawling all over me. Okay? I don't like spiders either. And the spiders were calling me names. They're like, you'll never be as successful as your brother. You're balding, blah, blah, blah. All right, my brain was being an asshole. It should have been giving me a good time. So recognize that your brain is trying to take the least path of resistance to get something done. It's your job as an entrepreneur, which you're already doing since you're in the top 5% of the population. 95% of people are employees. Your job is to train your brain to be as efficient, as productive as possible. And your job is also to train your employees on how to do that as well. All right, last thing on performance, guys, before we do the calculation, so get your calculators ready. Does your company have the requisite skill sets to provide effective risk oversight? In 2017, October 17th of 2017, it was 2:30 in the morning and my dog wakes me up and there was a wildfire outside my house. And I took my wife and my cats and my dog and we piled in the car and we left. I didn't have socks on my feet. October 18th of 2017, I went back to my house and everything I ever owned, burned. If I had prepared for that and I put all my company files on Dropbox or Drive, I wouldn't have had much of an issue, but I didn't prepare. Ever since then, I have everything on Drive. But I want you to take, on the plane ride home, take some time to think about the top 3 things that could happen to your business that are outside of your control, that are bad. COVID, cops come into your office or your store telling you to shut things down, earthquakes, fires. I can go on and on. I talked about the offsite management teams, management meetings. This should be a topic of discussion for that as well. Everybody give me the top 3 things that could possibly go wrong that we can't control. How are you going to stay productive in keeping revenue flowing during those kind of times? All right, guys, let's get some classical music going. Go ahead and total up your scores. We'll take 30 seconds since this is a long one. just skim over this, just not do so many exercises. Examples, I mean. Cool. All right, guys, I've just been told I have 10 minutes left. What happened to my slides? Oops. All right. Let me back up. Everybody got their score? All right, we're going to crush through this stuff. Actually, about 85% of it is over anyway, because those are the two longest sections. Branding. Customer focus, mission, and strategy. Super important. Brands build value. It takes 7 years to build a brand on average, by the way. How well is customer feedback shared with other departments? Your customer service team is a vital, or even employee, is a vital resource for you because they're the ones talking to the customers all day long. Tap them for their feedback. Send customer surveys. Give yourself a 1 through 10. Sorry, guys, I got to blow through this a little bit fast. Does the team have the people and systems it needs to cope with demand and to solve problems? Really quick, if your company goal is 5 million, you're at 1 million, and you know you're going to have issues with your CRM at 3 million, or you need a new email plan at 10,000 followers, or whatever the case. You got to be ready for that. Be proactive and not reactive, okay? Look ahead. It's more than just revenue. You got to plan for that success. How well does each employee know the brand promise? If you just ask yourself, what's a brand promise? Give yourself a 1. If your brand promise is tightly worded and posted publicly, go ahead and give yourself a 10. A brand promise is what you're going to be delivering as a company. It gives your company purpose, and it allows, it's not customer facing, it's for your employees. It allows your employees to know why they're coming to work. Tequila mentioned yesterday, your business is like a human being. It's like its own organism, all right? It has its own number. It's like a social security number. The government has you file separately. Your tax returns, then your personal returns. It's its own person. And your cells are your employees. And the brand purpose gives your cells reason to fuel your body. All right, you need a brand promise. Are your company KPIs focused? Listen, if you're not customer focused, then you're not going to last very long in business. All right, ticket volume, response time, NPS score, net promoter score, retention and churn rate. All right. Are your ideal customers well defined? I work with a lot of customers or a lot of companies, and they'll say, well, our customer is 45 years older and I don't know, over $100,000 a year in income. That's not really well defined. Do they like to play golf on the weekends? Do they have kids? Do they live in the suburbs? Really dive in. Look at each one of your customers, and you don't need to ask them. You can just look at your customers and create your avatar super detailed. The more detail you can get your avatar, the better you can speak to their pain points and convert them. Do you have an in-depth brand guideline document available for all employees to access? I wish Holly was here. Chris, I know you have a brand guideline document, right? Yes, the brand house, he said. But the key word here is in-depth. A lot of brand guideline documents I see are, here's the color palette, here's the font, here's how the logo is going to be spaced. You can do in-depth. You can go marketing communications like value prop. What's your USP? What's your unique selling proposition? What's your value prop? What's your mission statement? What's your brand promise? That should all be in there and available for everyone, even freelancers and contractors to see, so you're all on the same page. Okay, go ahead and average your score. No classical music this time. You guys got 10 seconds. Remember, the highest score you can get in this category is a 10. All right, I know you guys might not be ready, but we got to move forward because I want you guys to have this great content. Do key leader, this is innovation. Hey, there's a great book if you haven't read it. I'm a reader, I read like a book a week, business book a week. There's a great book, one of my top 5 books is Good to Great by Jim Collins. He talks about this. Did you know that 86% of the Fortune 500 companies in the 1980s do not exist today? And the one underlying factor he found in all of that is that they lacked innovation. They lacked a formal innovation department or even an innovation employee. You need to be focused on innovation. So let me ask you some questions around that. Do key leaders regularly meet to discuss future trends in the industry? Not your projects, not your company, the industry as a whole. You need to be on top of where your industry is headed. Go to, Soren had mentioned Answer the Web. Go to Answer the Web, type in the keyword of your industry. See what people are, questions they're asking about your industry. Go to Google Trends and start looking at the future of your industry before the future happens. That's how you innovate. How effective is your company at implementing new ideas and opportunities? If your employees or your co-founders don't have the ability to take and foster new ideas, then you're not going to go very far. You're not going to last very long. You're going to keep doing the same old stuff over and over again. That'll get you to a certain point, but not very far. Adaptability. Does your company learn from failures and apply lessons learned? Look, I was in the Army, and one of the things that we would do, we'd still be covered in sand and mud. Before we even got changed, we do what's called an AAR, an after-action review. Okay? We talk about our successes and our failures, what happened, where our movement's good, was the mission successful. There's no blame game here, but if you don't learn from your failures, then you'll never grow. Look, I told you I built and sold a few companies, but I've started some. I spent $100,000 on a company in 6 months of my time that I never even launched because I got to the finish line and I didn't like what I saw. Some people would consider that a failure. I consider it a great experience because I'll never do that again. I've learned so much from that. Okay? Market fit. If your product or service wasn't available, would 40% or more of your customers be very disappointed? This is not a number I made up. This is called the 40% rule. Send a survey to your customers that has one question. If we didn't exist, would you be satisfied, somewhat satisfied, neutral, disappointed, or very disappointed? If they do not answer 40% of the time, very disappointed, you need to take a step back from your ego, be humble, and figure out what you need to do to make them very disappointed. That is how you get market fit. The few companies that I've worked with, the less than 10, that this whole business success formula was developed from, all had market fit, and they were passionate about making sure that market fit was updated. All right? Is your churn rate low while striving to make it lower? Your churn rate is your ability to keep customers coming through. All right? Keep them longer. Look, here's a stat. It is 19 times harder to find a new client than to keep an existing client or customer. Do you know that? But yet every time I walk into a CFO's office, they give me the line item for here's your budget for finding new customers. Okay, where's my budget for keeping the existing ones? You've got to be focused on keeping your customers longer. That is the lowest hanging fruit to continued revenue. All right, go ahead and average your score for innovation. Man, I'm going through this stuff really fast. I hope you guys are keeping up with me. This is the Sunday morning, first presentation. All right, thank you. All right, guys. We won't total up because I know you guys are probably still working the math, but the highest possible score, as you know, 45. If you got over a 40, you're an A. All right? If you got a 36 to 39, you're a B. C is 31 to 35. If you are lower than a C, there is 0% reason why you should leave here today without talking to Ben and how you can scale your business. 0 reason, 0 excuses. Okay? Average executive ranking when I give this is 37. They give themselves a B. Those same companies with those given the same questions give themselves a 31, C minus. There's an interesting dichotomy there in what the executives think are happening, what the employees are telling you are happening. All right. Thank you very much for your time, everybody.